to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. In this video, kind of like when there's not a lot of news going on, I'm gonna try to combine two small topics into one, talk about it for a bit. But before I get started, I just want to say thank you to all you guys who continue to support my channel. I hope you guys are staying safe out there, with the coronavirus. The other thing I wanted to talk about briefly was tomorrow. I just want to let everybody know that Mike, Alex, and Anthony were kind enough to invite me on their podcast on Fireside Giants. So I'm really looking forward to hopping on there for a couple hours and talking about the offseason, recapping everything with them. And I'm sure we'll have maybe some conflicting opinions on certain things. So be sure to check that out tomorrow. It should be a lot of fun. And I'll try to go live tomorrow night. I know it's been 3 or 4 days. And, I try to go live as often as I can to keep my sanity just as much as yours, being that there's no sports right now. So look out for that around 8 o'clock tomorrow night. But I want to get started on this video. There's not a ton of news today on the New York Giants, but I wanted to combine two topics into one. I have not done a video yet in terms of the rescinding of Leonard Williams' franchise tag. That's been a topic of discussion now for the past couple of days for the New York Giants and whether or not Dave Gettleman would do that. Well, I will not say it's a complete impossibility. Dave Gettleman is famous for doing it with the Carolina Panthers. I think it was in 2015 with Josh Norman. People were shocked by it. He then went out and drafted James Bradbury. So it's not out of the realm of possibility if they cannot get a contract deal done that Gettleman may do that. And especially when you look at the New York Giants salary cap as currently constructed, Gettleman may have spent planning to either A, try to get a deal done with Leonard Williams and backload it after the first year to give them enough space to spend on the draft, or B, if they can't work out a deal, he may do the same thing he did with Josh Norman to Leonard Williams. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. Gettleman, of course, traded for Leonard Williams, and I think he'd look like a fool. He did, however, say that he's going to do what's in the best interest of the team, paraphrasing a bit a couple of weeks ago regarding Leonard Williams. So it may not happen that he's getting paid $17 million at the start of the season. Be on the lookout for that, and I'll break down the salary cap as it's currently updated right now and explain it and why I think they're definitely going to need to do some restructuring. Now, they could certainly do a couple of things, whether it's with Kevin Zeitler. Zeitler is only carrying a $2 million dead cap hit next year, so they could try to restructure his contract, put more into next year's contract, which would kind of guarantee that Zeitler would be on the roster next year, which I don't think would upset many Giant fans. He was probably our, most consistent offensive lineman last year. So I could see them doing that to try to save some cap space this year to be able to pay for the draft, because right now they don't have enough cap space to pay for the draft as is. But like I said, they're going to get creative. They'll free up some cap to do that. I think what a lot of people thought about with the rescinding of Leonard Williams is, could they go out there and trade for Yannick Ngakoue and take on that salary, or drop him and try to pick up Jadeveon Clowney? Jadeveon Clowney, of course, remains unsigned, and his market has not been nearly as high as a lot of people anticipated initially. A lot of people thought he was going to be in the $20 to $22 million range. I think Clowney thought the same thing. I think he's in shock along with a lot of other people. I would suspect Clowney's going to try to sign a short-term contract and try to prove himself so he gets paid handsomely next year when the market goes up. Whether or not the New York Giants could be that team, it's doubtful. It's possible. It would have to be about a $17 million contract, kind of replacing Leonard Williams's, which, we'll have to wait and see. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. I think Gettleman will stick with Leonard Williams, being that he's a little bit younger, being that he traded for him. But, I think Clowney's a talented player, and on a one-year deal could make a lot of sense for the Giants, but don't bank on it. The other thing I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about both these a little more when I start to pull up the quotes, is Ryan Conley. News has come out about Ryan Conley and how he plans to be back with the New York Giants before the start of the season, which is very good news. Ryan Conley last year, and I'm actually going to do my next film review on Ryan Conley. I posted in my community notes yesterday that I'm going to do it on the Patrick Graham defense. I decided to do Conley first. I had a lot of people ask me to do a film review on Conley, breaking down his pass coverage, things of that nature. In 3 starts last year, Conley played fairly well for the New York Giants, and I think a lot of fans are excited to see how he could build off that when he returns from the ACL injury. And it sounds as if he feels like he's going to be 100% before the year starts. And if that's the case and they do not draft Isaiah Simmons, I would expect Conley to be in the starting lineup, being that he's probably the most capable linebacker in coverage. He was actually pretty decent in that department last year. And, I'll definitely look through the film and try to show you guys as much as I can. I'd be excited if Conley's back. I think he could be a big part of this defense going forward. He's still up in the air for me. I'm not 100% sold on him. When we drafted him, he was thought to be a special teams contributor out of Wisconsin and a guy that really wasn't going to crack the starting lineup. The Giants, of course, were very thin at that position. They had injuries. He got his opportunity, and he played very well before he unfortunately sustained that injury. So we'll see if Conley bounces back and if he can crack that starting lineup. But I think he would be a much better fit alongside Martinez than Mayo, being that Mayo is not much in coverage either. I would view Mayo as a guy that would come off the bench in certain packages. But let's jump into some of the quotes I was able to pull up regarding both of these topics, and we're going to start with Conley. Like I said last year, he made 3 starts. He had 2 interceptions in those 3 starts before sustaining that injury. He had 20 combined tackles, and he was a ball hawk. You know, he created a couple of turnovers. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a QB hit. He had a sack. So he did a little bit of everything. He had 2 pass deflections. Conley was really good, particularly in coverage, much better than I thought a lot of people, myself included, thought he would initially be. And this was some of the quotes that came out by Ryan Conley today regarding, him returning to the New York Giants sooner than later before the start of the season. I'll be ready to go for training camp, Conley told the Post. I think I would have been able to do some limited participation in OTAs. I was excited to do individual periods and get reps, but who knows if I will get that chance given the scheduling changes due to the coronavirus. Of course, the Giants have said that right now they're locking down the facility in terms of working out, things of that nature. He later went on to say that he will be working out at his gym to try to stay in shape at his apartment complex. So expect Conley to be back. He later went on to say that he thinks he'll be back by the start of training camp, which, I think is in late July. So Conley has a very good chance to start for the New York Giants this year if they, if the season starts on time and if they don't draft Isaiah Simmons. If they were to draft Simmons, of course, I'd expect Simmons to start at that position, but they could definitely use Simmons in a variety of ways. They could play him at the safety, move Conley to the move Love to the slot. So even if we were to draft a guy like Simmons, I would expect Conley to be heavily involved in the defense early on this year and get an opportunity to build off last year's performance if, of course, he's 100%. The other thing I wanted to get into is the salary cap as currently constructed. Now, this is what I was able to pull up on Sport Track, but this does not include the contracts of the 3 or 4 most recent signings by the New York Giants. The defensive tackle from the Tennessee last year, the running back we got from the Tennessee Titans, and a couple of other signings as well. It does not include that. From what I read, the New York Giants, even though it says here, have almost $13 million of cap space. It's closer to 5 or 6. So it is actually below what it would cost for them to pay their draft picks. If you look on the bottom there, including all their draft picks, the Giants are going to have to spend approximately $12.12 million in the draft. Now, the Giants could get creative and trade down from that first pick. You see there, it's about $6 million the first year for the number 4 overall selection. But if you were to trade down to, say, 12 with the Raiders to get 12 at 19 or 12 in a future pick, you wouldn't be paying near that, and that would kind of free up a little cap space for this year's roster. But regardless, without doing some changes right now, the New York Giants wouldn't have enough money to pay their draft picks. And I know Dave Gettleman's aware of this. So it makes you think, are they possibly thinking about either A, getting a long-term contract extension done with Leonard Williams, B, rescinding the tag, or getting creative with other players on the roster like Kevin Zeitler? I mentioned Kevin Zeitler. Obviously, with his contract, they could restructure it, put more money on the back end next year and try to free up cap space that way. I'm sure the Giants will do this, but do not expect the Giants to go out there and make any big moves. When they only got $4 or $5 million of cap space, you got to dedicate 12 to the draft. Is Conley a possibility still alive if they were to rescind Leonard Williams? Sure, because that $5 million would jump up to 22. You would need 12 for the draft. That would give you 10. Say Clowney costs you 17 or 18. You could try to restructure Zeitler that way and get yourself enough cap space, but then you wouldn't have any money in season. Regardless, Dave Gettleman, once again, has not lived up to his word, and that's most GMs in football. I'm not trying to single out Dave Gettleman. He said he was going to set aside $20 million for in-season moves. That was not the case. And then finally, this is what I wanted to pull up Gettleman regarding when he cut Josh Norman, showing there's a history of him rescinding the tag. Now, this happened about a month after they had tagged Josh Norman in mid to late April, leading up into the draft. It might have even been slightly after the draft. I'm not 100%. After a number of conversations with Josh's agent, we realized that a long-term deal was not attainable, General Manager Dave Gettleman said in a statement. We have decided to rescind the franchise tag, freeing Josh to immediately become an unrestricted free agent. We thank Josh for all his contributions and truly wish him well. And what's the old adage that history repeats itself? Well, if history repeats itself, it's quite possible that the New York Giants may rescind the tag on Leonard Williams. I still think the long-term goal for the Giants and for Leonard Williams is to get a multi-year deal done. But like I've said several times, if I'm Leonard Williams, I'm playing on the franchise tag because I'm not worth $17 million a year. I'll be lucky to get 14 on a 5-year deal, but with the market going up, a player who's worth 14 now is worth 16 or 17 next year. So I don't see how it's beneficial for Leonard Williams other than long-term security, which is definitely important in a violent sport. But if he thinks he could play well next year, he can make a lot more money going forward, especially being, that he's only, I think, 26 years old. We'll have to see what Leonard Williams does. But I think the Giants tagged him just like Gettleman tagged Norman a few years ago, hoping to get a long-term contract extension done before the year started. And if he doesn't get it done with Leo, is it possible he could rescind the tag like he did with Josh Norman? Well, anything's possible. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Don't bank on it. Obviously, Clowney still remains out there. I don't expect him to be a New York Giant. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.